President Biden is urging tighter gun control laws after the mass shooting in Boulder, Colorado. What does this have to do with Bible prophecy? Well, I'll answer that question on today's edition of End of the Age. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Dave Robbins with Endtime Ministries. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of End of the Age. Now, I've got a unique program today because I'm going to be talking about world government, prophetically speaking, but I'm going to come at it through the angle of gun control. So I'm going to be talking about gun control, but I'm really devoting this to world government. So I'm going to wrap up the program and tie all this together with Bible prophecy, but I need to bring you up to date. I need to take you back in history and then bring you up to today, because if I don't do that, you really won't understand what having a gun control is all about in the United States, and the freedom to do that, and then how it ties into Bible prophecy. So let's go through some history, and then I'll bring you up to today. Now, controlling the world through gun control. I wrote an article on this years ago, and it went all over the place. I mean, there was people that were putting in remember when the old Tea Party was really big in the United States? There was like the Massachusetts Tea Party grabbed my article and put it on their homepage of their site, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I didn't know this was going to go there. But let's go do some history. When governments fear people, there's liberty. But when the people fear the government, there's tyranny. The strongest reason for people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is, as a last resort, to protect themselves against a tyrannical government or tyranny in government. That's what Thomas Jefferson said. Now, I'm not advocating today for or against gun control. Endtime Ministries does not have a specific position on whether you should carry or not carry a gun. That's up to you, your pastor, your family, and God, okay? So I'm not advocating for or against. I'm just telling you what's going on in the United States, the history, and where all this world government ties into Bible prophecy. But think of it like this. After years of slavery, our forefathers defected from England with dreams, of course, of a land that would be governed by the people, not a tyrannical king. And in an effort to guarantee more freedom and less control, they signed the Constitution of the United States. One of the reasons I want to do this today is because a lot of this isn't being taught in school anymore. Compare it with getting into gun control and different things. A lot of people have kind of just gone away from the Constitution. Now, most Americans I don't think are, but there's a lot of people in the so-called establishment that really don't want you to know about that document. But they signed the Constitution of the United States, which limited government control of the people. It doesn't give them more power, it limits their power. And to further restrict any ability to establish a strong central government, the U.S. House of Representatives devoted the first 10 amendments, or the Bill of Rights, of the Constitution to the protection of individual liberties. Of these, the Second Amendment gives every United States citizen the right to keep and bear arms, not with the intent of providing weapons just to hunt rabbits or things like that, and sport shooting, but as a means of defense against a tyrannical government that might seek to enslave individuals or to strip them of their God-given right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, right? So, the Second Amendment, very, very important. The Second Amendment states a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, some people say that this is not an individual right, but merely gives each state the power to maintain a military force. And the reason for the debate is simple. All men are endowed by their Creator, not government, with certain unalienable rights. Now, the government would like you to think that your rights come from them, but it doesn't. It comes from God. And one of those rights is the ability to keep and protect their freedom. And consequently, any government or dictator seeking to strip United States citizens of those freedoms and to control the people must intentionally misinterpret the Second Amendment, i.e., gun control laws, and take away the citizens' ability to resist. And that's the whole reason for gun control laws, because law-abiding citizens that have guns don't go out and commit crimes, okay? The guy that just did the shooting in Boulder, Colorado, not a law-abiding citizen. Law-abiding citizens do not do that. But yet, in an effort to stop these mass shootings, they want to take away law-abiding citizens' guns and restrict them and put tighter laws and things like that. You guys get the picture. You know what's going on in the United States. And so isn't it clear why our forefathers signed the Second Amendment into law? They knew exactly what it was like to live in slavery under a dictator who disarmed the masses and left no means of resistance. If the king or this tyrannical government has all the guns and you have zero guns, there's not any means of resistance for an individual, right? Our forefathers knew that. So the critical question today then is this. If the only reason for disarmament is to control the masses, then why is there presently such a push for gun control in China and Russia? Nope, that's not what we're talking about. No, North Korea, it's not what we're talking about. But in the United States of America and other places around the world, but we're talking about the land of the free, the home of the brave, right? The United States of America. We have a Constitution, a Second Amendment that protects an individual's right to keep and bear arms. And there were people that would like to end that. Now they'll say, oh, we're not trying to end it. We just want to take away certain guns and ban certain guns. But once you start down that road, it's a slippery slope to the point where they would try to take all means of resistance, because that's what the Second Amendment was all about, right? So I know I'm just like kind of on gun control, but I'm going to get into world government before this is over with. But you've got to understand the history of the United States to then understand the dynamics of what's going on prophetically in the future.
Major internet companies are silencing and censoring Christian voices online. These companies are trying to control what you see and hear. Almost 200 videos of ours have been marked as restricted online right now. That's why we launched End of the Age Plus, a platform where the truth won't be censored, a platform where we can preach the message of the gospel. When you subscribe to End of the Age Plus today for just $12.99 a month, you can watch all of our content in a secure, easy-to-view way from your favorite device. When you go to watch.endtime.com and subscribe, you'll get instant access to all of our teaching resources, including Revelation, the Unveiling of Jesus Christ, Understanding the End Time, End Time Magazine, and so much more. We will not censor our message to comply with what the world deems as politically correct. Go to watch.endtime.com right now or search End of the Age Plus in the App Store or Google Play.
We've seen Bible prophecy fulfilled like never before. From the halls of the United Nations to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, Endtime Ministries continues to reveal the Bible prophecy in the news headlines around the world every day. Whether it's through our broadcast or online at our Jerusalem Prophecy College, your gifts enable us to put vital materials in the hands of those who need it most. Because of you, we continue to replace fear with faith in the hearts of Christians around the world. We will continue to see prophecy come to pass at an even swifter pace. We need your support. Your donation of any amount enables us to continue to broadcast and be a voice in the ever-growing censored media. To become a partner or give a one-time gift, visit endtime.com or call 1-800-END-TIME right now. That's 800-363-8463. Go online now. Visit endtime.com.
So, in bringing you up through history, when we think about going from armed citizens, the ability to have a weapon, to slaves, we're coming up through history. So for over 1,000 years, it had been customary for Englishmen to serve in a citizen's army or a type of a militia, which originally required every individual across the ocean, let's say, across the Atlantic. This is prior to the United States and what happened here, the forming of that. It required every individual to be armed and to defend the realm if needed. And this system of universal armament was successful for two reasons. Every citizen had a way to defend himself and to protect his individual liberties. And number two, the monarchical rule was kept in check by sheer physical force should a tyrannical government try to enslave the population. So, during the Stuart period, back in 1603 to about 1714 AD, there was civil war between the kings and parliaments, which resulted in each side vying for control of the militia. Well, consequently, this led to the disarmament of many of the English citizens because both sought to confiscate the arms of the opposing faction. So they just started taking people's guns, confiscating them. Well, in the end, the Parliament forces prevailed, and the citizen soldiers of England were turned into the new model army. This was back in 1645, okay? However, Parliament misjudged the loyalty of the army to the people of England, and this coupled with no Parliament paycheck and an attack on their religious freedoms, and that led to the Rump Parliament, where the army actually took over the government under the leadership of Oliver Cromwell. But Cromwell died in 1659, and the Parliament was reinstated by General George Monk in 1660. So this new Parliament, which was made up of those that favored the monarchy, they placed Charles II on the throne. Charles disbanded the army except for those that were loyal to the crown, and immediately Charles began to disarm any person who was judged dangerous to his empire. And this left the standing armies in the power of the king to protect his kingdom, and without the system of universal armament, it ended in the ability of English citizens, it ended their ability to defend their individual liberties, and it forced them into slavery. They had no means of resistance. The kingdom had the weapons. So that brings us to original intent here in the United States. So we're going to jump forward to when they came over here. So after defecting from England because of the tyrannical rule of King George, our forefathers sought to build a new country that was governed by the people. Remember, they had just come out from under a tyrannical government and enslavement. So these were educated men, and they knew that over time there would be those that would try to usurp authority over free American citizens. And in order to declare our freedom from oppression and provide a safeguard against a tyrannical government, ever enforcing its will upon free people, the original founders wrote the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States. Now, a lot of people, like I said, would like to make paper airplanes out of those documents and pitch them out the window. And these are our founding documents, everybody. And so these documents clearly define the mindset of our forefathers in the late 18th century. And the opening statements of the Declaration of Independence, they provide a distinct remedy for the infectious disease of a tyrannical government, and which would seek to deprive free men of their God-given rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The Declaration of Independence states this. It says that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed individuals. Remember, government of the people, for the people, by the people. And that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it's the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new governments. Now, I'm not sitting here going, yeah, let's rush the government. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just telling you what the founding documents, the Declaration of Independence, because many of you graduated high school 30, 40 years ago. You don't remember all this stuff. But we need to understand what's going on today and where we come from. So, and the Declaration of Independence says, and it's their right, it's their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. And so in an effort to further restrict governmental encroachment upon the people, the Constitution of the United States was signed into law in 1787 and remains the supreme law of the land. Now, I want to restate that. It remains the supreme law of the land. There are people that are completely ignoring that today, and that's not a good thing because it limits government. But there are people that are preaching bigger government, and in the times of crisis, we need bigger government, bigger government. But what about the Constitution? Well, let's not talk about the Constitution. We need bigger government. That's what we're facing right now. This is the tug of war in America. So in essence, it tells the government what it can and cannot do. And the government doesn't want to be told what it can and cannot do, so they want you to forget about the Constitution. So, in order to avoid a dictatorship or a tyranny, the original framers built a system of checks and balances into the government by dividing it into three parts: legislative, executive, and judicial, and thus limiting the ability of any one political entity from retaining all of the power. Regardless of which state each framer was representing, one main determination propelled them all: no dictatorship shall ever run the United States of America. Okay? After the Constitution was adopted, several state representatives determined that the wording of the Constitution was vague concerning individual liberties. So as a result, James Madison wrote the first 10 amendments to the Constitution known as the Bill of Rights. I know you guys got all this already. You went through it like I did back 30 or 40 years ago in high school, and so it's just on the tip of your tongue, right? Well, so these 10 amendments are a very specific list of restrictions placed on the federal government. Freedom of speech, and I mean, you can't step on my freedom of religion and squelch that. You can't do that because I'm protected. Further, this further protected the individual rights of each United States citizen and cannot be usurped under any circumstance, or I should say, shouldn't be. And that's why when you come to the Equality Act and what's happened during the that is before the Senate right now, and the the coronavirus, the COVID-19 situation where they try to keep people from going to church and things like that, a lot of people have argued, what about the First Amendment? And the government is overstepping that. And that's what we need to watch. Well, in forging these documents, history tells us that even though our founding fathers did not always see eye to eye, there were two things that all of them agreed upon. A central government or dictator should never be allowed to usurp the authority of the people. Now, imagine what's happened just over the last 40, 50 days. And imagine if our forefathers were here now and going, whoa, hold on. We never set this thing up to be like this. But this is the reality, and we'll see how it all plays out, though, because the United States is not prophesied to be in the end-time world government. And that's another conversation for another day. And number two, that our forefathers, they all agreed that universal armament is the only check against a tyrannical government. Now, they separated it into three parts: executive, legislative, and judicial, as a checks and balances. But what about individuals and their rights? Who was going to protect them? They said, well, hey, the Second Amendment, that every individual needs to have a right to protect their life, liberty, freedoms. And so, consequently, the first point is addressed in the Constitution, while protection of the latter is clearly stated in the Second Amendment. Now, the Second Amendment, it states that a well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's pretty plain, right? So of the Bill of Rights, the Second Amendment is the most debated today. You do have religion, freedom of speech, and things like that. But when you take away somebody's ability to protect their home and their family and, come on. That's not even really debatable. But there are a lot of people debating about that and talking about, no, we need stricter gun laws and we need to ban certain weapons and, all kinds of stuff. Now, some have said that it gives the state, that the Second Amendment, after reading what I just did, some have said that it gives the state the right to control any militia and that only those individuals should be armed, a militia. Others say, because of the Game Act law passed by the English in 1671, which restricted hunting to those of wealth, that the Second Amendment only allows citizens a weapon capable of hunting. But this is simply not the case, folks. The original framers of the Constitution knew that there needed to be a specific provision to arm the people. Why? Well, the answer is clearly found throughout the documents that were used to forge our nation. Armed United States citizens have the right to protect their individual liberties and property against any government or dictatorship that would try to strip them of either. Now, again, if you don't want to have a weapon, fine. If you do, that's up to you. I'm not advocating one way or the other. I'm telling you, I'm bringing you through history here because this is not talked about in schools anymore. This is not talked about by our government anymore. They're trying to do away with a lot of this. And so, again, you got to understand, I'm coming at this from a prophetic standpoint, but you never understand the prophecy part of this aspect of it unless you have the history. So, I just want to clear this up here. I've done it twice now. I'm not advocating one way or the other. That's your decision. I'm just telling you about, I'm getting to world government here, so that's where I'm headed. So, not only were arms used as a defense against a tyrannical government, but our forefathers also believed that it was the duty of every American citizen to throw off any such government or dictator and to provide new leadership for the future of this nation. Again, I'm not advocating, let's go storm the White House. Not saying that at all. Don't say Dave Robbins said that, because I didn't. I'm telling you what our founding documents say and what was on the mind of the founders of this nation. And then I want to get to Bible prophecy. Now, so that's the reason for the Second Amendment, really. Without the universal armament of the population, that would be impossible. And for this cause, our forefathers pledged their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor to the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution of the United States, the Second Amendment, and thus protecting the right of every individual, every United States citizen, to keep and bear arms. They understood that there was only one reason why any government or dictator would seek to disarm the population. What do you think that reason is? Why would you disarm every United States citizen, but yet the government only has the guns? Why do you think that is? I'm asking you a question. Well, it's absolute control with no means of resistance, right? Now, if you've got a good president, that's great. I shouldn't say that's great. If you've got a good president, it's not as dangerous. But the problem is, our forefathers knew that there probably would come a time when somebody that had a kind of an ulterior motive here would usurp authority over the government and try to control the people. Plus, people need to be able to defend their homes and things like that from intruders. Look at what's going down on our southern border right now. Imagine living down on the southern border. You've got people coming across that you don't know where they come from. They could have come from any nation on the planet. They could be a terrorist, anything. And the government says, we're going to take away your weapons. Okay, so think about that scenario. So now we've got to talk about disarming the United States. And I'll get into it more after the break, but there are people in the United States that they say, well, we want to just ban this weapon, or let's have tighter gun control laws, things like that. But there are people that would like to just take away all the guns other than what the government has in the military. And that would be a travesty. So we'll talk about it more when we get back.
Move Mountains with Irvin Baxter. This book by Irvin's grandson provides 30 days of devotion that will enhance your relationship with God and others. Authentic illustrations from early morning devotions at Endtime will help you find your purpose and eliminate fears. Commit to taking this 30-day journey and experience real life change. Get your book for only $14.99. Call 1-800-363-8463 or go to endtime.com/move.
Major internet companies are silencing and censoring Christian voices online. These companies are trying to control what you see and hear. Almost 200 videos of ours have been marked as restricted online right now. That's why we launched End of the Age Plus, a platform where the truth won't be censored, a platform where we can preach the message of the gospel. When you subscribe to End of the Age Plus today for just $12.99 a month, you can watch all of our content in a secure, easy-to-view way from your favorite device. When you go to watch.endtime.com and subscribe, you'll get instant access to all of our teaching resources, including Revelation, the Unveiling of Jesus Christ, Understanding the End Time, End Time Magazine, and so much more. We will not censor our message to comply with what the world deems as politically correct. Go to watch.endtime.com right now or search End of the Age Plus in the App Store or Google Play.
If your station only carries the first 30 minutes of End of the Age, go to endtime.com and click the watch button to continue today's broadcast. You can also finish up later by clicking the archive button.
So efforts to disarm the United States, gun control. Gun control in the United States was virtually unheard of until really the early 1900s. Since then, at the federal level, there have been several efforts, probably 3 of the main gun control laws that have been passed upon which most disarmament lawsuits are founded would be the National Firearms Act of 1934. It placed a huge tax on machine guns and other gangster weapons. Then there was the Gun Control Act of 1968. It made it illegal to purchase a rifle or shotgun by mail order. President Kennedy was shot with a mail order rifle, they say, and called for a stricter licensing requirements for dealers and further detailed individuals restricted from purchasing a firearm. Then there was the Brady Handgun Violence Protection Act of 1993, and that required a 5-day waiting period and a background check for the sale of handguns, as well as requiring the establishment of a national instant criminal background check system. So during the Trump administration, Fox News reported, this is common knowledge, that President Trump, he was pro-gun, and he announced in April of 2019, that because President Obama originally had signed us onto the United Nations Arms Trade Treaty. But President Trump, he announced at April 26, 2019, that his administration would withdraw from the U.S. signature from the UN Arms Trade Treaty in response to concerns from gun rights activists that it could impinge on Americans' rights to bear arms. He actually said, under my administration, we will never surrender American sovereignty to anyone. Now, he understood kind of what was going on. He was anti-world government, anti-United Nations, really, and he proved that in many ways. But he said, the United States is never going to surrender American sovereignty to anyone, and we will never allow foreign bureaucrats to trample on our Second Amendment freedom. And that is why my administration will never ratify the UN Trade Treaty. Trump said that to an audience at the National Rifle Association's annual meeting in Indianapolis. Some of y'all may have been there. I don't know. But he said, I am officially announcing today that the United States will be revoking the effect of America's signature from this badly misguided treaty, and we're taking our signature back. Again, former President Barack Obama, he signed the treaty in 2013 and sent the treaty to the Senate for ratification. Well, on stage, President Trump signed a notice to the Senate asking it to stop the ratification process and return the treaty to the White House, where he said, I'm going to dispose of it. And the treaty, the United Nations Treaty, seeks to regulate international trade and conventional arms, including everything from a tank to small arms, specifically looking to prevent and eradicate the illicit trade in conventional arms and prevent their diversion. They wanted control over that, over the United States as well. But while supporters of the treaty have argued that it could not infringe on Second Amendment rights, the document had long been opposed by the NRA, and they pointed that the treaty's call for national record keeping and for governments to share their records. And they claimed that the treaty meant that the U.S. gun policy could become the rest of the world's business and subject it to its approval on pain or trade restrictions if it doesn't meet international norms. Well, President Trump said, no, that's not going to happen. He's been skeptical of both the United Nations and multilateral agreements, and he supported the NRA's concerns in his speech. And he said, by taking these actions, we are reaffirming that American liberty is sacred and that American citizens live by American laws, not the laws of foreign countries. And a spokesperson for the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, in response to questions about the United States move, he said that the treaty is the only global instrument aimed at improving transparency and accountability in the international arms trade. But they wanted to be able to tie the United States into these international treaties. So under the Trump administration, the United States pulled out of the different things, the Iran nuclear deal, the Paris Climate Accord, and it also withdrew from that controversial UN Human Rights Council, which we've now been pushed back into by the Biden administration, and the UN's, I think that's approved now. I'm pretty sure it is. I saw it the other day. And the UN's Educational and Cultural Organization, UNESCO. However, it's not the past, but the present and the future that has gun owners concerned. Now, again, you see how I'm tying this into world government now. World government, Bible prophecy. I'm going to transition from just gun control to into world government. America's leaders are, many of them, pro-gun control. And after the transition from the Trump administration to the Biden administration, now it's a whole different mindset in Washington, D.C. Of course, Fox News reported again, the Biden aides and Kamala Harris's gun control calls have included seizing assault weapons. So, Vice President Kamala Harris, I guess it is, and multiple top aides to President Biden previously said that they support mandatory gun buybacks, which would force Americans to surrender certain types of firearms in exchange for monetary compensation. Among those who have expressed support for this policy are Press Secretary Jen Psaki, Deputy Chief of Staff Jennifer O'Malley, Dylan and Cedric Richmond, Senior Advisor to Biden, and the Director of the Office of Public Engagement. So these comments were made before they worked for President Biden, but it shows you where their mind is at. And then you understand that when I say mandatory gun buybacks, that's essentially amount to gun confiscation with mandatory gun buyback. I mean, but they're different from what Biden himself has said that he supports. And the President Biden during the campaign and currently on his website, he backs giving Americans the option to have the government buy back guns commonly known as quote unquote assault weapons, which an AR-15 is. It's not an assault weapon. We could have a whole other discussion about that. I'm not going to go into that, or to register them under the Restrictive National Firearms Act. So then we get into what's happening, what just happened the other day. The Post-Millennial reported that Joe Biden is to use this Boulder mass shooting to tighten gun control laws. And we talked about this many times, how that people can use crises to push agendas. And I hate to see somebody politicize a horrible thing like the Boulder shooting or a mass shooting or something like that, and then say, hey, well, let's get gun control laws. And, you know, an individual who is a law-abiding citizen would never go into this situation and shoot 8 or 10 or 12 or 20 people. Never. I've owned guns pretty much my entire life, my whole family. I'm here in Texas. Most of my friends, if not just about all of them, carry and have guns and lots of guns. It's just everywhere. This is Texas. But yet, none of them, that's never crossed our mind, hey, I'm going to go mass shoot a mall or something. That's just not the case with a law-abiding citizen. But when somebody who's deranged out of their mind, which you'd have to be to go do something like this, goes and does it, then there are people in Washington that say more gun control laws. Because they wanted gun control laws before the shooting ever happened, you understand? And my condolences and prayers go out to the families of the victims in Boulder. What a horrible, horrible, horrible situation. But as the Post-Millennial reports, as details about the suspect in the mass shooting at the King Soopers grocery store in Boulder, Colorado emerge, President Joe Biden and other high-ranking Democrats used the opportunity to push gun control. Biden gave a statement and he said, hey, that it was time for the Senate to push through these common sense gun reform laws and wants specific action taken on assault weapons again and high-capacity magazines. He actually said we can ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines in this country once again. He said, I got that done when I was a senator. It passed, and it was the law for the longest time, and it brought down these mass killings, he says. And he says we should do it again. Well, that's kind of the mindset of what's going on in the current administration. Many of them. We need gun control laws. We need more gun control laws. We need to ban certain weapons and things like that. Well, so let me tie this into world government, because the United Nations, from its inception, has been about disarmament, and they have a whole wing that is entire wing of the United Nations, a whole entity that's devoted to disarmament. So the United Nations disarmament efforts, think about it, it's real easy. You can tell what they want to do. When you go to the United Nations, there's a huge statue right out in the front of a pistol. It looks like an old Colt 45 or something, and it's got the barrel tied in a knot, because they're all about gun control, whether it's nuclear weapons all the way down to small arms. And it's about disarmament, disarmament, disarmament. And so they tied this into the Sustainable Development Goals. I went and did a little research, and this is crazy. The Sustainable Development Goals, let me go through that really quick. The Sustainable Development Goals, unanimously adopted by 193 member states of the United Nations, including the United States, back under the Obama administration in September of 2015. And the goals make up the United Nations, or the international community's 15-year socialistic blueprint of global governance for every person on the earth. The name of it, Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. And it's a universal policy agenda designed to convert the nations of the world into a global community governed by the United Nations. That's the goal. There are 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and under those there's 169 focused targets. And they're designed specifically to manage the planet, okay? And they're socialistic because the plan includes wealth redistribution, the socialistic principle of wealth redistribution. And that it actually states, these will only be possible if wealth is redistributed and income inequality is addressed. So the Sustainable Development Goals, socialistic world government blueprint. That's what it is. We'll talk more on the other side of the break.
Most of us walk around day by day blind to the prophecies being fulfilled right before us. Every news report brings a new piece to the puzzle in the race towards the final 7 years and the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now, more than ever, it is important for God's people to understand the times in which we are living. On November the 12th, 2013, we opened our Jerusalem Prophecy College in downtown Jerusalem. These same courses are now available online for people who are unable to attend the classes in person. We welcome students to join us and discover the link between current events and the prophecies of the Bible. Take your place in the prophecy of Daniel 11:33. Enroll in the Jerusalem Prophecy College today. Go to JerusalemProphecyCollege.com.
So when you think about the Sustainable Development Goals, you think about, that they would want you to think about, hey, we're trying to protect the planet for the good of everybody. We're consuming so much that we're not going to leave any for future generations. So the international community, the United Nations, needs to manage what you have for you so we can sustain this for future generations, okay? Now that's the ruse. But the United Nations UN Chronicle, they published an article and it says, advancing disarmament within the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. You say, well, where in the world did that come from? Because that's their goal. And they'll use crises, even when their own propaganda is creating a false crisis to push their agendas. It's been happening for decades, everybody. The idea that disarmament and arms control are connected to development is not new. This article states this. Article 26 of the Charter of the United Nations recognizes disarmament as a precondition for durable peace. So what do we need to do? We need to disarm people. The Tatty Journal on April 23rd, 1992. Now we're talking about the United Nations, the New World Order, the world government. Back on April 23rd, 1992, the Wall Street Journal published an article by a Mr. Joe Biden. And it was entitled, How I Learned to Love the New World Order. In the article, he states, hey, why don't we breathe life back into the UN Charter? So, Joe Biden, he's a globalist. He believes in a one world government. He believes in the UN Charter. So when we talk about the Sustainable Development Goals and they're tied into disarmament, Joe Biden believes that. He believes in a world government. So the 2030 Agenda and its Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, they provide a unique opportunity to revisit the historical relationship between, and I'm going off the article here from the UN, disarmament and development. They're tying all of this in together. The advancement of disarmament and arms control objectives also supports the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals, from good health to quality education to gender equality, economic growth, and reduced inequalities and safe cities. They're saying we need disarmament. It ties into all of this, everybody. This is the United Nations talking. So when we talk about global governance, what does the United Nations really hope to gain from an international arms trade treaty? Control, control, and more control. As an institution of global governance, since its inception, the United Nations founding members have dreamed of a globalized world where all nations would operate under the system of international law. The only way for that to happen would be for them to universally disarm the planet, right? Which would allow them to strategically position their fully armed UN peacekeeping forces around the world to keep the peace. You see, in the name of peace, we're going to send out our peacekeeping forces to make sure we have peace. And a lot of times they'll go in and make war because in the name of peace. And so with this in mind, the United Nations Charter, which was drafted by Alger Hiss, a communist spy, and signed in 1945, gives the UN Security Council the responsibility of, with the help of the Military Staff Committee, the regulation and possible disarmament of the world's weapons. Hence the United Nations arms treaties. Again, from nuclear weapons all the way down to small arms. So the United Nations does not have a Second Amendment, though, because they don't want to protect individuals' right to keep and bear arms. The United States does, the United Nations doesn't, because it is diametrically opposed to the ideas of arming citizens. Why? Absolute control with no means of resistance. So, when I say Joe Biden is a president, Joe Biden is a globalist, he believes in the United Nations, believes in a world government. I just told you the article back in '92 about why I have come to love the New World Order. He's all on board, folks. So you wonder why the push for gun control here in America. That's why I wanted to bring you in our history up to today to show you how 2,000-year-old prophecies are coming to pass as we speak. The Bible prophesies about this world government. The UN, the seat of world government in the earth today. And according to the Bible, there will be a world government established on the earth just prior to the second coming of Jesus Christ. It's going to control the world politically, religiously, economically. And this global government will eventually be ruled by one man, the Antichrist. Revelation 13 describes this coming new world order. Verses 1 through 8. Revelation 13, 1 through 8 describes the global religious system. The world government. It would be Revelation 13, 11 through 15 describes the global religious system. And then verse 16 through 18 is the economic system, the mark of the beast. Each of these globalized governing entities will be used to force every citizen on earth to pledge allegiance to the world government and its ruler, the Antichrist. And just like the United Nations platform today, the Antichrist will come into power with a plan for the universal disarmament of the planet, all in the name of peace. The Bible says he will come to power on a platform of peace. That's Revelation 11, I think it's verse 21 or 22. It's somewhere in there. 21, 22, 23. He'll come in on peace, and he will corrupt people by flatteries. So we've really got to wake up. You citizens of the world, let me say. I mean, was peace the reason? Because the Antichrist is going to come on a platform of peace, but was peace the reason that world empires of Babylon, Media Persia, Greece, and Rome conquered their adversaries and turned them into slaves? No. Maybe peace is what Adolf Hitler was thinking when he disarmed the Jews and led them to gas chambers. No, that was not the reason. Perhaps it was peace that motivated Mao Zedong and Joseph Stalin to kill millions. No. Is it possible that peace was behind the disarmament of England, the English, which led to slavery of our forefathers? No, it's not peace. There's only one reason in history for the universal disarmament of citizens. It's absolute control with no means of resistance. Now, let's talk about the Antichrist and control. Again, he's going to come on a platform of peace. Daniel 7:21, the Bible says, and in his estate shall stand up a vile person, this talking about the Antichrist, to whom they shall not give the honor of the kingdom, but he shall come in peaceably, and to obtain the kingdom by flatteries. So, the Antichrist will be preaching gun control. He's going to be the leader of the world government. The world government today, one of its main sections of its original charter is about disarmament. So he's going to be the leader of the world government. He's going to be preaching gun control, all the while building up his own arsenal. Okay? Daniel 7:25 says, and the Antichrist shall speak great words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and think to change times and laws. And then what laws do you think he's going to want to change? Maybe gun control laws? Daniel 11:44, Bible says, but tidings or news out of the east and out of the north shall trouble him. Therefore he shall go forth with great fury to destroy and utterly make away many. So he's going to come in on a platform of peace. That's not how it's going to end up. And you say, well, when does all this take place? Well, in Daniel 9:27, the Bible says, then he, the Antichrist, shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. So it's going to be a 7-year period. He's going to sign a peace agreement between the Israelis and the Palestinians that's going to last for 7 years. But the Bible says if you're in the, I think it's the New Living, it's either the New King James Version or the New Living Translation, it says, but in the middle of that week, so 3.5 years in, the Antichrist shall bring an end to the sacrifice and offering, and on the wing of abominations shall be the one who makes desolate, even until the consummation which is determined is poured out upon the desolate. The abomination of desolation. Other prophecies let us know that 3.5 years in, the Antichrist is going to come into power at that point. He's going to be revealed, and he's going to become demon or satanically possessed. The Bible says Satan is going to give him his seat, his power, his great authority. And so the Antichrist will begin peacefully, but 3.5 years later, he's going to be the worst ruler this world's ever known. Will he change laws at that point? Yeah. How do you think the Antichrist is going to be concerning gun control laws? The Antichrist is going to demand absolute allegiance to himself. And so he's not going to have countries out here that are fully armed that are resisting him. He's going to go and war against those countries. And he's going to be doing that all the way to the end. He's never going to fully control Israel. He's never going to fully control Jordan. And we believe he's never going to control the United States of America. Revelation 13, 16 through 17, the Bible says in a New Living Translation that he's going to require everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to be given a mark in their right hand or on their forehead, and that no one is going to be able to buy or sell without that mark, which was either the name of the beast or the number representing his name. Folks, this is world government. So I brought you from history to now, what's happening with gun control and things like that in America, but a lot of it stems from the edicts of the world government. A 2,000-year-old prophecy, it's happening right now before our very eyes, and what's going to happen in the future. This is world government. Revelation 13, 1 through 4, though, it's not a good thing. John said, then I stood on the sand of the sea. I saw a beast rising up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. On his horns 10 crowns, and on his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw looked like a leopard. It had the feet of the bear, mouth of the lion, and the dragon, Satan gave him this. So that's the one world governing body, symbolic of that. The dragon or Satan gave this Antichrist individual his power, throne, and great authority. And I saw one of his heads as it was wounded mortally unto death. Now Satan's going to give the Antichrist and the world government its seat, power, and great authority. The Bible says that a deadly wound was healed. That's the tearing down of the Berlin Wall. Other prophecies tell us that. And all the world wondered after and followed the beast, and so that they worshiped the dragon. So individuals will worship Satan, who gave authority to the Antichrist, and they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war against him? So it's not going to be a good thing. The Antichrist will be pro-gun control, because he's going to demand everybody pledge allegiance to and obey him. And so we don't want to be a part of that. And I'm tying into what's happening in the United States right now with our past and what's coming in the future. And that's why it was a good thing that President Trump resisted those things in the United States.
This has been End of the Age, brought to you by the faithful partners of Endtime Ministries. If you're not currently a partner with Endtime Ministries, or if you would like more information, we invite you to call us at 1-800-ENDTIME. That's 1-800-363-8463, or visit us online at endtime.com.
Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and like our Facebook page.